The Libyan Digest.
The Libyan Digest is brought to you by the Libyan Observer. Hello and welcome everyone to our digest, the Libyan Digest. It's brought to you by the Libyan Observer. Today it's our fourth digest, and as every episode, we have a new subject, a new topic, a new discussion to have. It's sometimes related to the current situation of war or of the pandemic, and sometimes it's just social. Stay tuned and have fun.
Yes, so this is the fourth episode of our podcast, the Libyan Digest. As you have mentioned, in every podcast, in every episode, we have a topic to discuss, a topic that has a relationship with the pandemic we have in the world, not just in Libya. Also, we will have other topics that has a relationship with the war. Our congratulations to all Libyans because of the freedom of Tripoli. Yes.
Tripoli is back finally,
yes,
and all thanks to those who've been fighting for it and who lost their souls. May their souls rest in peace. We lost many good men. Since the beginning. Yeah, since the beginning.
Yes, I was trust that we will win. We were called for civilian country.
Yeah.
We have fight for our freedom. We have fight for our revolution. So yes, we are very happy.
Yes. Let's say that's the best thing that happened in weeks, maybe after Ramadan. We were really praying for for having the happiness we used to have when after 2011, and thank goodness we got it.
But we still kind of sad because of the things that has happened.
We lost families,
at the beginning of this week. We have lost many of young, brilliant guys. We do ask God that they will be in the paradise, inshallah.
Inshallah, may they rest in peace. And finally, we're back with our digest, which is going to have a new topic and a new guest, of course. Today's digest is about children in war and quarantine. As every episode, as I said, we have a guest. This episode, we have Mrs. Halema Buzayan. She's a mom. And of course, she's, a teacher at the Faculty of Pharmacy.
Yes, she's a doctor of pharmacy in Misrata University. So, yes.
We're gonna, benefit from her experience
as a mom.
As a mom, and of course, as a doctor.
Yes.
We know she knows things. So we're gonna, take it from her and, benefit you guys.
We have decided that we are going to talk about quarantine section relating to children, of course.
Yeah.
And I'm going to talk about war section and the effects of war to children. So this is the main points that we are going to have in
the highlights of today. Of course, as adults, war has affected us on so many levels. In addition to that, coronavirus arrived. People had to stop work and quarantine themselves to avoid the virus. However, no one could avoid the war. Imagine the stress of staying at home, jobless and not safe. How would that affect children? If it affects us as adults, how would it affect the children? Mentally, physically, nutritionally.
Yes, socially.
Yeah, socially. So we want the best for our children, but how can we do that through this mess? And I think we have the person to answer it.
Yes, children in the heat of war, an estimated 3,000 children in more than 80 countries are participating in armed conflict, carrying guns, fighting, serving as spies, according to a report released by the London-based International Coalition to Stop the Use of Child Soldiers. The report recounts grisly stories of children watching their homes burn, seeing their parents being killed, fleeing from gunfire, being forced into serving in an army or joining to avoid starvation, lying and clearing land mines, and fighting on the front lines. War's impact. Most people have only recently started to realize that war affects children in many ways, says University of Ulster psychology professor Ed Kearns. In addition to witnessing fighting and bloodshed, children are faced with a host of other challenges, including the loss of basic resources, disrupted family relationships, normalization of violence.
I always have this saying of like, leave children out of your mess. No matter what are you going through, no matter what the country is going through, they are still children. They are innocent. They only want to have fun. They only want to play.
They are a white sheet, so we have to be careful relating their, let's say, their childhood. So we have to be careful about that.
Yes, the current situation is not helping. Therefore, we want to help.
Yes.
We want to do our best, like have the best consulting of getting the help for the children. We don't want them to lose their childhood because it always affects. We all remember situation from childhood that like comes with us when we're adults. That's why we need to be careful with our kids today.
Yes, and this is the point that we want at the end of this podcast reaches everyone who's going to listen to us. Yes, shall we welcome our guest for today?
Okay.
Yes.
Mrs. Halema, welcome and thank you so much for your time with our podcast, The Libyan Digest. We welcome you today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a true honor to be here today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. First of all, you're a mother of two, right?
That's right. I have a 5-year-old son and a 2-year-old daughter.
Yeah. So I think you know what we are going to discuss today, and you know how does it feel to have children at this current situation, especially war and currently, like, it's not only war, no, there's the pandemic.
Right.
So we have a lot of questions for you. First of all, like, is there any certain process for you that you do at the quarantine for your children?
Yeah, so in terms of the quarantine, first of all, I discussed the pandemic with the kids. The 2-year-old, not so much, but my 5-year-old son, I kind of explained to him that there's a virus called Corona. That's why we have to stay indoors. We can't go to the parks anymore. We can't go out as much anymore. So we're pretty much at home. I really stress the importance of personal hygiene with both of them. So I teach them how to wash their hands, the importance of having like clean clothes. We always wash our hands before we eat. We always like wash our fruits and vegetables before we eat them. So just teaching them and emphasizing the importance of proper hygiene and like sanitation. And then we're also very, very careful. We don't just go out. So I know Masrata has kind of eased the whole like closing of stores and whatnot. But just because everybody else goes out, we don't go out. We're just going to play it safe. And doesn't mean we don't have fun. So at home, like there's a lot of activities that, you know, we engage in together as a family to keep them entertained.
Okay. Actually, you answered my question of like kids get bored a lot.
Yes.
Yeah. And you have to keep them entertained.
Right. Yes.
Therefore, like, do you have like activities or process that you follow?
Yeah, so a lot of it goes back to like, again, teaching them proper sanitation. So that starts in the kitchen with our food. So I actually bring them into the kitchen with me when I cook. And they actually help me prepare food. One of our favorite things to prepare together is pizza. So I let them like do their own toppings, choose their own toppings when it comes to pizza. Also with like fruits and vegetables. My kids love fruits and vegetables. And for kids who don't enjoy them, they're really important, you know, to maintain a child's health. You can make fruits and vegetables fun. So you can like slice them in a way and create animals with them that kids actually want to eat them. So bringing them with me into the kitchen. We also draw and color a lot. We play with Legos and magnets. We have family time. So it's me and my husband, my kids all together. We'll build things out of Legos and we'll make sure the kids are involved because family time is really, really important. And we also have like kind of like an outdoor area. So we made our own swings out of like old fabric. And so they swing on the trees. We play with sand, with water. So even for people who, for example, live in apartments and can't do that, there's still other things they can do with their kids.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, I think during the quarantine you have a story to tell. I don't know if you are going to tell us your experience with the quarantine outside Libya.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and I have another question to ask about. Yes, your experience about the quarantine outside of Libya and your evaluation of the people out there.
Yeah, so beginning of March, I went to Turkey to have a surgery done. I went with my husband. We were only supposed to be there for like 5 days, and we were stuck for 61 days. So it was right when they made the decision to shut the airport down and cancel all the flights. So we were stuck there. The Turkish government was very, very strict with the quarantine. So people, when they had to go out, for example, to the supermarket, so shopping centers, places like that were all closed. But supermarkets, pharmacies were open. You have to wear a mask. You have to keep social distance. You have to follow social distancing guidelines. And we tried our best not to go out unless we absolutely had to. That was very, very challenging. And then once the Libyan government was ready to bring us back home, we had to do testing, the CPR test, which was quite a challenge. It was very painful. Luckily, we were negative both times. So we did the first test. We were completely locked in for like 3 weeks, not allowed to leave at all. And then they repeated the test. It was negative, alhamdulillah, again the second time. And then we were able to come back home.
Regarding your children, yes, they weren't with you
no,
outside of Libya.
No.
So how did you treat with this situation?
Yeah, it was really hard. Like I said, I had gone for a surgery, so I never planned to bring my children with me. And then a 1 week trip turned into a 61-day trip. So it was really, really difficult for them. Add on top of that the war. So right immediately when I came back, they became very, very clingy and very, very attached to me. And so it's been difficult because they always want to be with me 24/7. But I explained to them what happened and it won't happen again. But while I was there, I just tried my best to like call them every single day. Of course, it's a challenge here because the internet doesn't always work. But yeah, no, after that, I think I don't have any more. I don't plan to travel again without them. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's a lesson you learned.
Yes.
Okay. What else? For war.
Yeah.
Like, do you talk to them about war? Because as I understood that, like, you explain everything to your kids.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't...
Is it much healthier to, like, explain everything to them?
I don't want to, like, deny the fact that there's a war. That's something I think that's like difficult to hide. But at the same time, like for example, I don't turn the TV on 24/7. I, you know, for Eid, I chose not to purchase like weapons for them to play with, which I think is a big mistake as a society we make.
Yes, yes.
But I do explain to them kind of what's going on, that there is a war, it's in Tripoli, it might affect us here in Masrata, lots of lives have been lost, because my sister-in-law, lots of her family members have passed away because of the war, unfortunately. So I do explain, I don't deny the fact that there is a war that is here.
Because all of us, like, here are affected in any way. As you said, you're, like, your sister-in-law, everyone, like, has someone they know who they lost maybe in this war, or they know they suffered something. For children, it just sometimes maybe it wouldn't affect them now, it won't affect them now, but it might affect them later.
Right.
Therefore, we don't know what might happen, but, like, you always have to take, like, make sure they understand. That's what I got from you, right? Okay.
You have talked about the society and the things or the role that the society has to play in relating with the war. You have mentioned something about the toys. They are selling guns and stuff like that for kids. What do you think the ideal? What is, in your opinion, the ideal role of the society that has to play regarding the children? Yes.
Yeah, no, society has a huge effect on the overall health of our children. I think one of the biggest mistakes we made is the decision to, before the quarantine, the decision to shut down the schools because of the war. You know, yes, there's a war, but it's really, really important in terms of a child's mental health to keep life as normal as possible. And so, yes, there's a war, and then we decide to shut down the schools, and now the kids are at home, and they know the school is shut down because of the war. Plus, a lot of the children, their fathers are probably out on the front lines, so they have this, like, separation anxiety. So it's a problem. Society really needs to keep things as normal as possible for a child. So I really hope the schools decide to open up soon with, like, you know, in the fall, hopefully.
We all hope that, because, like, currently, kids brag about war.
Yeah.
I hear so many kids, like, fighting. They're saying, you're with the other side, you're with this side. I mean, no matter what side are you on, you're a kid. You don't know what is this.
Right. And especially probably, I mean, around Eid, like, I could hear children on the street saying, like, oh, you are, like, with Haftar and we're, like, with the Tuwar. And so they're reenacting these, like, violent acts, and that really shouldn't happen. Not just, like, with guns and, like, I think they're, like, the BB guns and stuff, but there's also, like, this game, the PUBG game.
Yeah.
That's also a huge mistake. Like, parents are responsible for their kids at the end of the day, and we're responsible, like, to make sure that we're protecting them from these types of things. So, you know, excessive use of, like, you know, excessive video game use, I think is detrimental to a child's health. The other issue that I notice is that, and I think this might have something to do with the war, are kids who stay up till like 6 a.m., 7 a.m. A lot of people say it's because of Ramadan, but, you know, that's also, that could have catastrophic toll on a child's health as well, and it could possibly be that there's something else going on with the child that he can't go to sleep early. So, as a society, I think there's a lot of room for improvement.
Yes, of course.
Getting back to the pandemic we have in Libya and the world in general, do you think that personally you were living in the United States, do you think that your experience out there has affected positively your way in treating with the quarantine, or there's something other has made you better in dealing with this situation?
I think for everybody, including my friends in the U.S., nobody in the world was ready for this pandemic. Nobody is ready for a quarantine. I mean, just look at what happened, like, financially speaking, to the United States. A lot of people lost their job. Nobody is ready for this. So I think for me, it's just, you know, taking a step back, understanding, okay, this is the situation that everybody is dealing with. It's not something that's specific to Libya or to Turkey or to the U.S. And what's the best way to deal with this? And I just like to look at the positive. I just like to look with a positive perspective. At the end of the day, this is going to give me a chance to develop like a really close bond with my kids and to spend like a good amount of time with my kids. And same goes for my husband. We're spending a lot more time as a family together. So we're trying to make the best out of that.
Yes, I think that what like people should do. Maybe take the best out of it.
Yeah.
Like look what at the positive side. Maybe now, like before quarantine, I had no time. I basically because work takes most of my time. I want to do sports. I want to like focus on my eating schedule, eating process and everything, and I wasn't really focusing on these things. After all, like in the quarantine, I'm more careful of what I do, what I eat, sport, exercising, everything. And sometimes there are lazy days, no one to tell you you're fired.
Yes.
So I guess as you said it, take the best out of it, and that's a very good advice. Thank you very much for it, because we forget sometimes.
Yes, your tips for those who still keeping up the quarantine at this time, especially people who are in Tripoli and Misrata, let's say.
They've eased back.
Yes.
Yeah. I would just say, just make sure to find something to keep you engaged, because at the end of the day, when you're locked up, it's almost like you're in a prison. It could have maybe you're protecting yourself from corona, but we want to make sure that mentally you're also safe. So you just want to make sure that you're keeping yourself busy with something, whether it be cooking, it could be exercising. Like you had mentioned, Aisha, you're being careful with what you eat and make sure you're maintaining an active lifestyle, which you can do at home. The other thing I forgot to mention is I'm having some Quran lessons with my kids at home. So that's kind of helping all of us mentally. So just anything to keep yourself busy. Don't just sit around and wait for when the world is going to open again.
Yeah. Of course, yes. How is the homeschooling? Because currently they don't have school.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
It's a challenge. So my son is supposed to start kindergarten in the fall. So I'm trying my best with just paper and pencil to teach him the alphabet, how to write his name. And my daughter just kind of listens in. We tried actually learning through the iPad, but I realized, they're more interested in games. So I'm trying to keep away from learning online and just bringing actual books and colors and trying to teach them that way through a more traditional method.
At a time at this, you really appreciate the role of teachers.
Absolutely.
Because they were taking so much, let's say 15 students, 5 years old and all that.
And you have an experience.
Yeah, I have. That's what I was thinking of myself.
She's an expert.
You have to teach them how to hold a pencil, how to write, and everything.
Yes, there's an important point I have to mention about the social media. What do you think about the suitable use of the social media and the time that children has to spend on these platforms?
I try my best to limit them, just because you don't know. I think UNICEF is the one who might have started a report about this, that you don't know what children are being exposed to online.
Yeah.
You don't know what kind of predators there are. Not just sick people, but there's also, the war, constant talking about the war. Or even in another country, constant talk about the virus. And these are all scary things for kids. So for me, I just limit it completely.
So children has not to use and has not to be exposed to social media at all.
Yeah, or if you plan to, give them your phone or a tablet, make sure you're supervising them. There are lots of educational applications that, I think are very beneficial for kids, but make sure you're watching what your kids are doing.
Actually, I do that with my little sister.
Okay.
I linked my email with the YouTube email. Okay. Therefore, she subscribes to too many channels that I have to watch it. And okay, they're kids things and everything, but it's too much for a kid. I always say they have to have normal childhood.
Right.
Look at the sky. Go play with the in the under trees.
Right.
do something,
Right.
create something. And sometimes you can like help them, let's say balance between two, because I do that with my sister. She watches homemade things, DIY.
Oh, good. Do it yourself. Yeah, DIY.
Yeah, DIY, and like she does it later. Maybe like parents should do that also. Like
Absolutely.
yeah, balance between both. Oh, okay, come on, let's go watch this YouTube channel where they make cookies out of something.
Yeah.
And let's do it.
I totally agree with that. Yes.
Yeah, I guess so. You can control their amount of watching, the time of watching,
Right.
and that's really better. And I'm letting her, like, thinking she's got the control. Like, she's watching what she wants, the time she wants, but no, I know what you're doing. So it's better. What else? Okay, now let's move to, like, nutrition system.
Okay.
Okay. How, like, kids should, like, how parents should deal with that, because now junk food is all over the country.
Right.
Indomie for example, like it's everyone's favorite. Like how to replace it or something.
Yeah, no, making sure that your child is eating healthy is a challenge, especially when you have picky eaters. But for us, we always sit as a family so that our children learn from us. And in terms of like, okay, if you don't know how much to give your child of what, there's a really great website. It's CDC, My Plate. So the CDC is the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. It's based in the U.S. and they have on their website something called My Plate. And it gives you what you should give based on the age group. So generally, you have a plate that's cut into fourths. Half of the plate is fruits and vegetables. The other half is grains and protein. And there's a little side of dairy. And if you don't know how much to give of what, like I said, they have everything laid out for you. So that's what I'd recommend. But definitely as much fruits and vegetables as possible.
As possible, yeah, of course. Maybe I'll follow that also, because
I recommended it, yeah.
yeah, someone to tell you what to eat every day, I think is healthy. It's nice, yeah.
Yeah, and then you mentioned like the sweets. Sweets that we always give when somebody does like a good thing, like, oh, if you clean up your Legos, I'll give you a piece of chocolate. So it's not like for all the time. That's like really important also.
Yeah. As I told you, there should be control on everything. Letting them think they have the control.
Right.
But like it's always in your hand.
Right. And like I think a key to that, for example, with my kids before, I'd be like, no, you can't eat chocolate now. Or you know what, here, this is, you always want to make them think that the control is with them. So you'd be like, okay, you did a good thing. So either you can have a piece of chocolate or you can have a piece of candy. Which one do you want? But you can't have both. You know?
Yeah, they think,
they feel like, hey, I get to choose.
Nice. It builds a character.
Right. Yeah.
What do you think about having this break with our director? So stay with us, dear listeners. We are going to have this short break and we will be back, inshallah. The Libyan Digest.
The Libyan Digest is brought to you by the Libyan Observer. With our lovely discussion with our lovely guest, Mrs. Halema, we asked you basically about like the process that we should follow with children in war and with quarantine and the nutrition system and what should we avoid and what we should follow with children. And now I have another question, which is basically, let's say psychological.
Sure.
But I guess you have a bad information about it, right? I hear a lot about the PTSD. And I know that like adults get a lot of PTSD, especially after wars, after traumas, and like after going through something hard. Does that like happen to children? Do they get affected?
Yeah, so I guess for our listeners, what is PTSD? It's post-traumatic stress disorder. The American Heart Association explains it as a psychiatric disorder that occur in people who have experienced or witnessed a traumatic event. such as a natural disaster, like if somebody experiences an earthquake, a serious accident, a car accident, for example, a terrorist act, war, combat, rape, or other violent personal assault. For kids, it can happen. After an extremely stressful experience, a child may behave in a way indicating a post-traumatic stress reaction. It can be characterized by, usually what it is the child will be withdrawn or really irritated or have feelings of guilt and just have difficulty sleeping. In such a situation, if it's extreme, most of the time they're going to need a professional to help them with treatment. But as parents and as teachers, for example, we can expect that the children after war will start behaving differently. Especially, for example, in our situation here with the war in Libya, a lot of times kids might have death of a parent or a loved one. They might have poverty that's caused by war, like especially now with the rates of the dollar fluctuating so much. And also like the difficulty of getting money out of your account and the difficulty of people paying people on time. That type of poverty can also affect children. Additionally, there can be long-term separation. So, for example, if a child's father is out on the front lines and he doesn't come back regularly, that can also lead to some type of stress. So if it's extreme, it could be like a PTSD, but we can also expect that the children will have other types of stress that we can help them deal with at home.
Getting back to the war section, the second section of our discussion for today, let's talk about the loss of basic resources for the children, the losing of their homes, the losing of their families, of their beloved lives. So this has to affected them directly. What we should do about that? What the role of society in this point?
Yeah, so the role of society, I think ultimately it's going to come down to like the parents, the family, and teachers once we start school again. So things to watch out for, these are like major specific problems that that professionals have seen. Children who have been affected by the stress of war, like they've seen in them. So clinging where they don't want to be left alone, bedwetting, schoolwork, like they aren't able to perform as they used to perform, anxieties, aggression, depression, grieving, risk-taking, and aches and pains. And so in this type of a situation, you always want to come to the child and figure out what is the specific problem that they're experiencing. What is it that's starting all this stress? It's going to be different based on the different age groups. So for like my kids from ages 2 to 5, a lot of times they might not be able to discuss what is bothering them, what that stress is from. They might, but they may not be able to. So what's really most important is children need a supportive environment. The war is already destructive enough for their mental health. They don't want to see their parents like stressing out or, you know, being aggressive with them. They need a loving and supportive environment, and that's the most important thing that we can do for our kids right now.
We have another problem. It can be a disaster, actually. The normalization of violence. How can we deal with this issue, actually?
I think it's a really big challenge here, because I see it in the kids in the neighborhood. It's like they're totally numb to it. And so I think it's going to take a lot of work. I think we can't deny the fact, again, that there's a war going on. We really need to sit down and have a conversation with these children about what's okay, what's not okay. And we really need to focus on how can we rebuild our society in a positive way. Yes, we've had years and years of destruction, but now we need to be able to think about how we're going to move forward to build without violence.
This is like, how to say it? This like should be like a responsibility for us as like a society. We need to raise awareness for parents, families, teachers, where they should know that like there are children between us. The children listen, understand, and they get affected.
Absolutely.
Therefore, I guess this is a call for the humanitarian organizations. Where they should have like awareness sessions for parents. I think they do that sometimes, but they like.
Especially now, I think the role of these organizations has to be apparent in this moment, especially for the families out there in Tripoli who get back to their homes. So yes, I hope they
awareness is
yes.
needed.
Absolutely.
And this is, as I said, it's a call for humanitarian organizations from the Libyan Digest.
Yes. What do you think about the educational system and the role of the educational system? You're teaching in one of the
faculty of
yes,
pharmacy,
yes. So the role of the educational system towards children, especially children. Yes.
Education is it's like a foundation of a childhood. So we really, I think, by deciding to shut down our schools, we made a really, really big mistake. From early on. I mean, this whole year, who actually studied, really, when you think about it? Nobody. And so I really hope that starting this fall, things are going to be different. Our
1 year is lost.
Yeah, 1 year has been lost. It's a disaster. It's really, really unfortunate. So I hope we, we learn from our mistakes. That's not a solution to just shut down the schools.
Yeah.
And hopefully starting this fall, we pick up things in the right direction.
I hope so, actually, because... I mean, they're the new generation. We're counting on them.
Right.
The country needs the great generation to build it again. Therefore, I hope, how to say it? The Ministry of Education is doing something. We need to cover up what has been lost.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I think not just that. I mean, as a mom, I know what the school system is like. So... I think it's going to take a while before it's perfect. And so I don't think we should just rely on the school itself. I think we should also look into having our kids join other programs like extracurricular activities, anything to help support what they're learning in the classroom.
Yeah, of course.
Before concluding our podcast for today, let's be honest and tell the truth. And let's say touch the real problem that we are suffering from regarding the children and regarding the whole situation we have in Libya, whether the pandemic or the war. If you are going to name and touch the real problem, what is it exactly? In general.
In general,
yes.
I think is that there's no structure. Because when you look, for example, at the U.S., yes, they were hit by a pandemic, schools shut down, but, the fact that there's structure, there's organization, there's a way for the teacher to be engaged with the parents of her students, and for them to have, a connection. She was able to, I think the platform they use over there is, there's Google Classroom and Zoom. There's something
Zoom,
else, there's, another way to continue a child's education.
We have talked about, last podcast, we have talked about distance learning.
Oh, okay.
And we have mentioned something about the lessons that has launched by the Ministry of Education throughout TV, and we have criticized that, and we have seen the live on Facebook. These lessons were live on Facebook, and we have seen the bad comments. Let's say it's not a good way to do this thing in this way. So what do you think about that? This procedure has been taken by the Ministry of Education.
Yeah, throughout TV. They were trying to teach kids throughout TV.
Libyan channels.
Oh, okay. Okay, I wasn't familiar with that.
And people were criticizing the teacher, the way he's done. They're acting like it's a class. They were mocking it.
Oh no.
And we were saying, maybe it's a good thing, but not with the people who are not aware of it. We lack awareness.
Yes, you have mentioned something about the right platforms like Zoom and Google Classroom.
Right.
So yes.
I mean, they seem to be pretty successful in the U.S. People were able, teachers were able to finish this year via online methods, and starting in the fall, students are going to be moving on to the next level. But that's the issue here, is that we have no organization.
Yes.
And then there's some students who are going to have testing and others who aren't going to have testing. And they're just going to be
And also awareness. I think awareness.
Yeah, we lack
awareness. You have mentioned something about awareness, Aisha.
We lack awareness of distance learning. If it's not teacher-students traditional way, it's not a way.
Right.
This is how everyone see it. Parents see it this way. Teachers see it this way. However, like, we learn each day a new thing.
True.
How about kids? They are more open. They have like lots of space in it.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it depends on like maybe the methods that we plan. Like if they're going to use the TV, I'm not against that.
Yeah.
That could be a great idea. But let's make it entertaining. So for example, in the U.S., I don't know if you're familiar with Sesame Street.
Yeah.
You know, Sesame Street is a really, really great way to learn.
Yeah, of course.
There's like the magic school bus. You want to make education fun and like, you know, you want to make programs fun and educational at the same time.
Because they get bored.
Exactly. And so if you're not really engaging your audience, they're not going to learn anything from you.
That's why we like a lot of things.
Yes.
So yeah, I hope our kids will get better and better. We get their like the great education we dream of.
We hope so.
Yeah, the safeness we want. So yeah, it's just for today's discussion. It was about like letting people know that there are children between us.
Right.
So let children out of your mess because they don't need that. Okay, they have a whole nother world for them. I hope in the future. And I guess that's it for today.
We know that there's a stress, there's a pressure, and everyone in this country has a story to tell. Actually, let's say up to the moment we have a lot of bad stories to tell, and we hope that in the future we are going to see children who's going to achieve a lot of positive things. Mrs. Halema, if we are going to conclude and summarize our episode in 3 points, let's say, what are they?
Okay, well, I would say I think the most important thing is that children need a loving and supporting environment. That's the most important thing I want the audience to take away from all of this. They're already dealing with the stress of war, the stress of the pandemic. They need to be in an environment that's loving and caring and supportive.
Yes.
So I think that's...
Love, care, and support.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Don't we all need that?
Yeah. Yes.
Of course.
Yes. So this is our episode for today.
Mrs. Halema, thank you so much for your time. We had a lovely discussion. We hope to have you again for another discussion.
Thank you so much, guys. I really enjoyed my time here with you. You guys were awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
It was a really spontaneous talk and discussion.
Yeah.
So yes, this is our Libyan Digest. The 4th episode has reached to the end. Yes, Aisha.
Thank you everyone for listening to us. This was our digest for today. I hope you stay tuned until our next digest with a new guest and a new topic. I mean, thank you so much for the lovely discussion also.
Thank you.
And that's it. I think goodbye everyone.
Yes, stay safe. The Libyan Digest.
The Libyan Digest is brought to you by the Libyan Observer.